The West Virginia Mountaineers enter 2023 with their head coach under a lot of scrutiny, and there are a lot of people around the West Virginia camp and the college football world that may want Neal Brown out of a job. He's going to attempt to prove people wrong in 2023, but this is the team going over a lot of overhaul with some new teams to the Big 12 among some really good teams. The expectations are not high for this West Virginia program. Can they prove everyone wrong, and can Neal Brown save his job, or is this going to be a team that's going to be searching for a new head coach in the next head coaching cycle? What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate. Welcome to my channel. I'm predicting all 133 FBS level college football teams this summer, and that means I'm doing your favorite team. So hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you know when that video gets uploaded. But there are more ways than that you can always support my channel. You guys are doing one right now by watching the video. Hey, might as well do more by liking, commenting, sharing, and anything else you can think of to help me support my channel, because whatever you guys are able to do, I will greatly appreciate. Let's talk about West Virginia here in 2023. Neal Brown on the hot seat last year and still on the very hot seat coming into this year. Not a lot of room for error, but there is a lot of new pieces to this West Virginia team this year. How do we do preview predictions around here? We go through a roster overview, look at who the team lost, who's coming back, and who's coming in through the transfer portal and recruiting class, as well as taking a look at the 2023 Mountaineer football schedule and giving it a game-by-game preview and prediction. So without further ado, let's talk about the West Virginia Mountaineers in 2023. The quarterback room, of course, we start out with the most important position on the field. JT Daniels going to be gone from this team. Had some high expectations entering this program and really didn't live up to it at all. 2,107 yards, 13 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions for him last year. Not great stats by way of JT Daniels, only 61% completion percentage, very highly touted, very highly rated recruit coming out of high school, and just hasn't lived up to the expectations yet. He is transferred over to Food, I believe, to play for Rice, if I am correct in that. You also lose Will Crowder out of the quarterback room, but not to fret. Garrett Green probably end up being that starting quarterback for West Virginia this year. Reading the wrong line. 493 yards, 5 touchdowns, 3 interceptions on 55% completion for Garrett Green last year. I think he has the tools to be a pretty solid quarterback in the Big 12 Conference this year, but definitely going to need to see some improvement from years past from Garrett Green. In the running back room, your leading rusher and Tony Mathis Jr. is going to be gone, 562 yards and 5 touchdowns last season. However, you do return C.J. Donaldson, who had a much higher yards per carry average with 526 yards and 8 touchdowns for him last year, as well as Justin Johnson, who got more carries, just less yards than Donaldson, 98 carries, 430 yards, 3 touchdowns for him last year. Oh, and by the way, Garrett Green was the team's 4th leading rusher last year, the team's 3rd leading rusher coming back. 276 yards, 5 touchdowns for him on the season last year. Running back room should be fine. You get Garrett Green back at quarterback, but this wide receiver room is what replaces a lot of talent. Your top 4, I should say, leading receivers are gone from last year. In order, that was Sam James, probably the best wide receiver in the room, and Bryce Ford-Wheaton. Caden Prather and Reese Smith are all going to be gone off of this team. Now, you do return your 5th and 6th leading receivers in Cortez Bram and Jeremiah Aaron, as well as Davis Mallinger and some other pieces that you may want to throw in there. You are getting some transfers in to help bolster the room, though. Devin Carter is a 4-star coming over from NC State. And then you also get Jashawn Pope coming over from Kent State, some other transfers in that room as well. Now, tight end-wise, you lose Mike O'Laughlin, however you say the last name. Again, I apologize for mispronunciations across the board. He was your leading receiver among tight end, only 66 yards, though. You do return Traylon Davis and get a transfer from LSU, probably going to end up being that starting tight end in Cole Taylor. Not Mason Taylor. Cole Taylor comes over by way of LSU. So it's a pass-catching unit that goes over a lot of overhaul, and it's a quarterback situation that is definitely going to have to improve in order for this team to reach their full ceiling and fullest expectation. On the offensive line, you lose James Mittner, but you do lose Doug Nestor, Zach Frazier, you do return, my apologies, Doug Nestor, Zach Frazier, Brandon Yates, and Wyatt Malum. Not lose, your only losses, of course, James. Those 4 guys come back. Should be pretty solid offensive line for West Virginia this year. It may have some areas to improve, but this can be a solid offense if the pieces fit in and everything goes right. But looking at this defense for West Virginia, what can we expect? Well, there are a lot of pieces gone off of this defensive line. Dante Stills is one of them, a fantastic defensive lineman for this team throughout his career. Led the team in sacks last year, had 26 tackles, The leading sack number was 4.5. You're also going to lose Jordan Jefferson, who had 3 sacks of his own last year, and Taj Alston knotted 2 of them last season. Who do you return, though, to this team? Well, you do end up returning Sean Martin, Mike Lockhart, and Edward Vesterinen, as well as getting some transfers, and Devon Hawkins and Tyron Bradley. Again, apologies for mispronunciations, but yeah, those 2 guys coming into this team to help bolster up the defensive line. In the linebacking unit, Jasir Cox, Exree Lowe were 2 top 5 tacklers for the team last year with 62 and 53 respectively. They are both gone, as well as Linnell Carr, who had 21 tackles for the team last season. You do return your leading tackler, however, and Lee Kapogba had 92 tackles and 3.5 sacks, which was 3rd on the team last year. Sean Martin, I failed to mention, had 4 sacks, which was 2nd on the team last year. But back to the linebacking unit, Jared Bartlett and Lance Dixon, some other names that are going to be returning to this linebacking unit as well. Now, when you take a look at the defensive back room, Rashad Ajayi is going to be a name that gets lost. 26 tackles, 3 pass defended for them last season. However, Aubrey Burks, Marcus Floyd, Malachi Ruffin, who led the team with 2 interceptions last year, and Hershey McLaurin, among some other names, are all going to be coming back for this team. And you get some transfers coming in. Montre Miller, I believe, comes over from Kent State, and Keyshawn Cobb comes over from Buffalo, both of them 3-star rated transfers. When you take a look at I think biggest concern for this team is the pass catching unit. Davis Mallinger, I believe, is a converted defensive back that's going to try to play wide receiver for them. They're getting transfers to give them depth, but if that offense can figure things out, I think there's a lot of good talent on defense here, and West Virginia can exceed expectations and possibly save the job of their head coach, Neil Brown. Their offensive coordinator is Chad Scott, and their defensive coordinator, Jordan Leslie. As we take a look at the West Virginia schedule in 2023, some very hard out-of-conference games, which we will get to here in a minute. Hey, any game at home is going to be underlined, and any game on the road is going to be in italics or the slanted text. Any game you see in green will be a game that I have the Mountaineers being able to win easily. Any game in yellow is a game where, hey, the other team puts up a fight, but the Mountaineers are going to be able to win. Red, of course, is a loss. So without further ado, let's predict West Virginia in 2023. I get the strange feeling that West Virginia is going to end up winning one of these non-conference games against Power 5 opponents, even though both teams, I think, of which are better teams. I'm sorry, Mountaineer fans, you're just not beating Penn State on the road. Drew Aller is going to be really, really good with Allen and Singleton in the backfield, probably one of, if not the best, rushing attacks in the entire nation. They got a legit defense this year. Penn State's a real good contender in the Big Ten Conference this year. Do not see West Virginia going on the road and pulling out a win in Week 1. However, I do see them pulling out a win in Week 2 against Duquesne. I think they're going to be able to easily win that game to set up a matchup with the Pittsburgh Panthers. Now, Pitt, I believe by this point in the year, would have already played another Big 12 opponent there in Cincinnati. Pitt's going to be a very interesting team to watch here in 2023. They're getting a new quarterback. I believe Phil Jurkovic from Boston College going to be coming in there. There's a lot of good pieces surrounding him. Defensively, you lose some guys, but hey, there's a lot of good pieces coming back there as well. Again, I just said I had this strange feeling that West Virginia was going to be a team that was going to end up winning one of these non-conference games, and I think defensively, they match up with Pitt very well. It's a game that they were close to, but ended up losing last year. I think it's going to be a much more competitive game. I think the game is going to be very, very fun. And West Virginia, I believe, is going to get their revenge from last season, be able to win that game at home. Start out the year 2-1. Okay, so you get some momentum building into Big 12 play. Quick water break. Remember to stay hydrated, kids. It's important. But now when we get into Big 12 play, the schedule is not easy at all. Texas Tech is a team that I am buying the Red Raider hype. I think that team is going to be very good. Now, that quarterback play does have to improve with Tyler Shuck or whoever happens to play at quarterback for them. But that's a Texas Tech team that is loaded with talent. I think they got good talent offensively, good talent defensively. I don't think West Virginia stands much of a chance. I think Texas Tech going to be able to beat the Mountaineers there at home. And then going on the road to play TCU, I think, is another loss for this Mountaineer team. I think when you take a look at TCU, there's a lot returning in that secondary for TCU, but there's a lot else that leaves. Among them in the secondary, Travius Hodges-Tomlinson is gone. You also lose D. Winters on the defensive side, and on the offensive side, Max Duggan, Quentin Johnson, your top two leading rushers, are gone from last season as well. That's going to be a very tough piece to replace, but I think TCU's got a lot of very good pieces, and I think still will be a very competitive team, and I think they got a lot more talent than West Virginia, so I think they win that game. Now here's a very winnable game for West Virginia. Houston is coming off a year in which they lose a lot. Clayton Tune, Nathaniel Dell. I know Alton McCaskill didn't play last year, but he is gone as well, along with a lot of pieces on defense. Entering a new Power 5 conference, they definitely have a lot to work on, a lot to improve upon. It's a very winnable game for West Virginia. But again, I do not have great faith in this coaching staff with Neil Brown and company. I think they drop that game. This very well may be the point in the year in which Neil Brown may get himself fired. If they cannot win this game here against Houston, maybe he lasts the entire year. That's just my bold prediction, I guess. I don't really know if it's that bold, but I do have you guys losing to Houston there in week 7. However, bouncing back, I do have a win against Oklahoma State. This West Virginia team is not bad enough to where they're going to end up losing all the games in this on their Big 12 slate. That sounds terrible of me to say, because there's some really good talent on this team. I think their running back room, offensive line has good experience, and the defense has got some good pieces as well as some good transfers coming in. I think that's what helps them win this game here against Oklahoma State. It's a team that's overhauling a lot offensively, and I think West Virginia's defense going to be able to shut them down. They'll get a win in Morgantown against the Oklahoma State Cowboys. However, going on the road to play in the Bounce House, very, very tough ask to do, and I got West Virginia losing that game. UCF, probably the best-suited newcomer for the Big 12 Conference this year, John Rice Plumlee, and a lot of talent comes back surrounding him. Defensively, there's some good pieces as well. They got a really good coach in Gus Malzahn, who has been around the block in the SEC. He knows what it takes to win in a power program. That's a UCF team I expect to be very good, very competitive. West Virginia on the road, not going to have much of a chance, in my opinion. When you take a look at this BYU game, hey, okay, this could be a game that's winnable for West Virginia now, as BYU definitely struggled last season, but are getting some really good, talented transfers coming in, as well as a new quarterback in Keaton Slovis, a name that West Virginia knows last year. They ended up playing him in Pitt last season. But when you take a look at this BYU team, I think there's a lot of good talent. When you look at Slovis, I think he's a very solid quarterback at home for West Virginia, a game I do not see them winning. I think BYU going to be able to win that game. I also don't think West Virginia is going to beat Oklahoma. I think there's too much offensive firepower for that Sooner team to handle. Now, yes, there is a lot of concern about that Sooner defense this year. There's just not enough pieces for me on the offensive end to be able to say West Virginia is going to pull off an upset. And on the road in Norman, especially when Oklahoma may be trying to gear up towards a Big 12 championship run, maybe even a college football playoff run, if that defense has improved enough, I don't think you're winning that game. Cincinnati's the team that goes over a lot of overhaul this season. New quarterback, pretty much all new wide receiver units. A lot of talent leaving that defense. It's going to take time for them to adjust to the Big 12 Conference this year. Very winnable game for Cincinnati, but it's also a more winnable game for West Virginia in Morgantown. Got the Mountaineers winning that one and then losing their season finale against the Baylor Bears. I think the Bears season can go one of two ways, but I have them bouncing back this year. If you've seen my Baylor prediction video, I think with Blake Shapen and company coming back, Baylor's going to have a really solid football team this year in 2023. Again, you do lose a lot of key pieces on that defense, but I think there's enough talent there for Baylor to bounce back, have a solid season on the road in Waco, West Virginia. I believe they're going to end up losing that game, which leads me to a record for the West Virginia Mountaineers of 4-8, and I believe that would get Neil Brown fired as well. Again, it's part of me with some of the talent that's leaving this team. I don't trust Neil Brown as a coach. Don't really have a lot of faith in him. Now, that being said, he can exceed expectations and be able to jumpstart this team to a pretty solid season. There are a lot of winnable games on the schedule. I just don't have good faith right now. 4-8 is where I sit with the Mountaineers. So that's going to do it for my preview predictions for the Big 12 and the West Virginia Mountaineers. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. And as always, remember to play hard, but tailgate harder. See all you guys in the next video. Goodbye.